Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear.
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution.
The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
So help me God. So help me God. Yes, I shall uphold the Constitution. So help me God. And just exactly which God would that be? They never define that, do they? When the presidents stand up there and they hold out the Holy Bible and they put their hands on the Bible and they raise their right hand and they say, "So help me God." What God exactly would that be? I don't know. Let's ask Abigail. Abigail, which God is it that the presidents swear to? They say they're gonna uphold the Constitution. Come on, Abigail.
Well, let me just say this, okay? You know a tree by its fruit. So, I mean, if it's interesting, Mark, because when we were in the Christian church, and maybe you can identify with this,
baby.
And when we were listening to men and maybe not being as diligent as reading the word ourselves, we could probably ask that same question to us. Who are we serving, and what is he all about, and
that's true.
what are we doing? I it's so, but again, I love the verse in the Bible where it says we can tell a tree by its fruit. And so when you start to look at the characteristics of our Creator, number one, he's all about life. He's all about life, preserving life and for the next generation. So in light of that, I will have to say that President Trump is serving the God of Israel, and I'm not saying he's serving it on, in the fullest capacity, but I believe, there's a lot of people that have been major leaders, exceptional leaders, and they just answered the call. And it was like a work in progress. As they were on this call and they answered the call, they got to know who God is, who he is, because they couldn't do it without him.
That's right. Well, hey, there you go. That's why I call on Abigail. She's always ready in season and out, and she's always on the call, as a matter of fact, and she has a well-said argument towards anything. Though that was a very good explanation. I agree with that, 100%. Abigail, oh, hear ye, oh, hear ye, oh, hear ye. How art thou of this fine day?
Well, I'm fired up.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, here we go. She's fired up. My gosh, these days are few and far between. No, they're every day for Abigail O'Hare. But what are you fired up about?
I'm just fired up about, when I look at where we are on the cycles of history, we are a generation that better know who our Elohim is. We had better know it, because the truth is, I have to say this in all honesty, I really believe that there's a lot of people, and I'm going to open up an interesting conversation, but I believe that there's a lot of people, because they don't know who they're serving. And you say it, I'll never forget this. We would say it all the time with the Bobby Dylan song, you're going to serve somebody. And
right.
if you're not going to serve the God of Israel, you're going to be serving Hasatan.
That's right.
And so I'm just going to be honest with you, because I have to be transparent before my Elohim. I just believe there's a lot of people who have conceived major demonic forces in their life. There's no other way to explain what's going on with the chaos. These young people, and a lot of them are educated. They've come from universities, and I mean, I've heard some of their interviews. They're not people that they just pulled off the streets. Not that they're not educated in life. There are some people who are on the streets that are more educated than those who are in the White House. But I believe that we really are, Mark, in a spiritual battle like we've never been before.
Like never before.
I mean, we just see it right before our eyes. And, there's no shame. There's just it's a spiritual battle, and so that's where I'm at. Last night I had maybe 4 hours sleep. The night before that, because I've been very concerned about what's going on, and then the night before that, I was having a dream, and someone in the dream asked me to pray. So I'm in a dream, right? And they're asking me to pray, and all of a sudden I'm speaking out. I wake up and I just start praying out loud. I mean, I'm like it's about like 2:00 in the morning, maybe. I don't know what time it was, but all of a sudden I woke myself up with me praying out loud. So I'm saying that there's something going on where I'm very thankful again that Dina Dye is going to be doing the focusing in distracting times and emphasis on prayer. I mean, prayer is definitely needed. It's definitely needed. But
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been waking up a lot in the wee hours in the morning with this kind of an understanding. So that's what Abigail is.
Hey, well, I mean, those of us that do care and we have a heart for the righteousness of God, and that be portrayed amongst the people of our nation and this planet, period, the people in general, or all of us are going to be that way, that feel that way. So I'm with you 100%. Well said, my throat went dry. Well, I will, once again, I'll agree with you, and there's a lot going on. Thank you for mentioning this coming Sunday. We will have a broadcast, and it will be, normally we do keeping focus in distracting times, and we're going to add a different component to it with several people coming on and praying for different as a matter of fact, real quickly before we get going here, I want to maybe I could bring this up here. We'll go with it. So the different topics that they'll be praying on is cultural rot and greed, rejection of Yahweh, media and education, sexual immorality and family, and drug addiction, body of Messiah, violence, murder, anger, religious leaders, abortion, child trafficking, national rulers, all kinds of different topics that concern our way of life here in the United States, and the different things going on, the laws, that type of thing, and which is totally relates to the Constitution, because these are laws set forth by the nation that we are very proud to be a part of. And we love this country. We love what it stands for, and it has changed its focus in several times during history, and today is still the focus is sometimes it's a little skewed and sometimes it's dead on, and we have to stay focused ourselves on making sure that we uphold the laws, not only of our Constitution, the laws of the land, but make sure we pray for all of that to be kept in a balance that will not harm another person.
Yeah, and a lot of those things listed, Mark, are very dangerous. The trafficking,
Yeah.
that is, to me, that's one of the things that just grieves me. Oh my goodness, it just grieves me to no end. And and a lot of most of those topics, that they're praying against is demonic. Now we're talking, talk about demons that are controlling people. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I've had conversations with people, lately. I mean, not intentionally, but it just kind of like it crosses my threshold, if you will, whether it be the threshold of the internet or the threshold of just one on one. And we've gotten into some pretty deep discussions about things. And what concerns me is some people don't see anything wrong with this.
Yeah, I get you.
People have they do not sigh with this type of a lifestyle that's going on. And so again, I think that we are I think that we are definitely on the cycle of history that there's no other explanation than Torahlessness.
Right.
People that do not know how to do what's right in the eyes of the king, don't care to do what's right in the eyes of the king. Maybe we're never even introduced to do with, to learn the ways of the kingdom.
Sure.
And that's what we're up against. And that's spiritual.
Well, thank God that we have a constitution of laws of God that are set forth. The Torah is set forth for us to follow, and we're going to follow them. And we're going to follow the Constitution of our United States. And I've heard a couple of different things lately about different things going on, and even down to the point where people don't think that there's some people that don't think the Constitution's in effect at all anymore. By the way that the Congress and different people are handling it, it's kind of almost secretly gone by the wayside. But that's not for us to decide or even ponder as we just go through. So let's do a little recap here. And hold up real quick before we get on. Let's Sherry Flanagan has joined. So hi, Sherry. You're on mute. You're muted before you get going there. And
I'm also half awake, but that's all right too.
All right, we're good. We're good. You even half awake. You have more to offer than most people I know. So we enjoy having you on the show.
Yeah, I was listening to what Abigail said, and I absolutely, totally agree with her. It's demonic spirits of chaos and disruption and strife. And, I mentioned it before, the scripture says, where it says nation will rise against nation, that word there is ethnos in the Greek. Ethnic group will rise against ethnic group. And we have to resist being a part of any of that. There's only one race, and that's the human race, period.
Right.
So
very well said. Very well said. Well, okay. I'm going to do a quick review on what we've talked about lately. Presently, we are in the Constitution in Article 1, Section 8. And so far, it's interesting. I was kind of going back over to do a recap of all the things we've discussed, which has just been amazing to me. I never would have thought of any of these things for topics for a show, but oh my gosh, they just explode. So, and in Section 8, there are, I think, 18 clauses. And we started off, we've pretty basically done mostly a clause a week every time we're on. This Section 8 starts off with the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes. Clause 2, they have the Congress shall have the power to borrow money, so they can collect taxes, borrow money. And then clause 3 says they can regulate commerce with foreign nations. They can, clause 4 is to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, meaning the people, immigrants coming into the United States. They shall also have uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies. Clause 5 goes over to the power to coin money. And of course, all of these basically starts off with the Congress shall have the power to. And so what we're talking about basically is because Congress is overseer of the Constitution and it takes a stand based on the things in the Constitution. It goes on to also in clause 5 is they have the power to fix the standard of weights and measures. Clause 6, they provide the punishment for counterfeiting the securities. And we talked about the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. We also talked in clause 6 about human capital. Human capital is a subject that you think about, but you never put a title to it. You never put a caption to it, like human capital. And it is the tangible assets of or qualities of people. And what they bring to the table in life. And very interesting. I like that. Very well put, and good discussion on that. As a matter of fact, we are going to be discussing that topic on my evening show, The Compass of Cram, here pretty soon. So now in clause 7, Congress shall have the power to establish post office and post roads. Interesting, up until clause 7, they talked about monies and bankruptcies and coining money and what they can do and how they regulate all that. Kind of jumps over to some generic topics like establishing post office. Clause 8 talks about promoting the progress of science and useful arts. And clause 9 talks about tribunals to the Supreme Court. And that was a real interesting discussion that we had. We defined the federal courts, courts of appeals, district courts, bankruptcy courts, article courts, and tribunals. And we talked about the difference between a court, a tribunal. We even talked a new term to me, quasi-judicial, was an interesting little topic that we had there for a while. Clause 10 was defining the punishment of piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, starting to get more into how we regulate more along the armies of our more along the lines of our armies and our services and how we protect our nation. Clause 10 kind of starts that when they're talking about on the offenses to the law of nations and piracies and high seas. Then it jumps right into clause 11, the most important power that the Congress has to declare war. So once again, we're now getting into the defense of our country. And so that was clause 11, and clause 12, which we handled last week, was Congress shall have the power to raise and support armies and I went through the history of the Army and what the Army means and all the different things that are involved in, like the Corps of Engineers and the Continental Army, on how it all started. So if you're just coming in for the first time and you haven't quite understood what we're really doing here, we're going through each article, each section, each clause, one by one, and talking about it, giving a history of it, explaining how Congress works with this and enforces this, which has become one of the most interesting subjects I've had in all 66 years of my life. I really wish I'd have studied this out 30, 40 years ago. I would probably understand the workings of our country here in the United States more than I do. Which brings us to Clause 13, which is the Congress shall have the power to provide and maintain a Navy. Well, this is quite special to me because I spent 3 years in the Navy, and you have to go through quite a little bit of training and understanding and history in understanding what the Navy is and what you're doing and why you're a part of all this. And so I don't remember a whole lot of that because it was literally 46 years ago when I went into the Navy. But I do have very good remembrances of being in the Navy and being a part of that. And even though I was only in for 3 years, it was a huge part of my life. And so I'm just very special to me. So once again, Clause 13, the Congress shall have the power to provide and maintain a Navy. A part of this does refer to the inner workings of our country, and not just, you think of the Navy and with me, and I think most people do, when you say the word Navy, you probably think of the coast and the big ships, the destroyers and the battleships, and the aircraft carriers. So when I say aircraft carrier, I go flat like this, and we think of our coast and how the Navy defends our country when it goes out, from there. But it does it has a lot to do with the inner coast and the rivers and things like that, in which Sherry has attested to many, many times, as her husband has somewhat to do with things like that. And I find it very interesting. Part of my notes that we have here will talk a little bit about that. So I'm looking forward to hearing Sherry expound on those things a little bit more. But before we do, I thought one thing that was interesting to me in my research on this is that there are 8 uniformed services of the United States. 8 uniformed services. So I'm wondering if Abigail and or Sherry can list off the 8 uniformed services, official uniformed services of the United States. Would either one of you like to try? 8 of them. I used to think there was only 4. And I find out that there's actually 8, and 6 of these 8 are actually armed uniformed services, and 2 of them are not, but they are still part of the military service part of our country. So would either one of you like to try to, or start off? Hey, 4 of them are pretty easy, I think. But
I'll try.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Because I pray every day for people who defend our country.
Good.
So we have the Army, the Navy, the Marines.
Right.
Those are the first 4, correct? And
Army, Navy, Marines are 3.
Army, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard.
Coast
National
Guard
Guard.
is one of them, yes.
National Guard.
No, National Guard is, but it's more of the reserved. So it is in there, but it's not as a listed service.
Okay, Air Force.
Air Force. There you
Okay.
go. And
How about Border Patrol? Border Patrol.
No,
Okay,
that's Homeland Service. Homeland.
Okay.
This is what I just found out about. So I don't be real surprised when you find out what it is, because most of us do not realize, and it is an armed service of the United States. Can you name that 6th one? You've named 5 of them. 5 of the armed ones.
Okay. The police department wouldn't be a part of it. No. Okay. I don't.
Let me tell you, you're not even going to guess it.
Go ahead,
Sherry. Any ideas? Believe it or not, it's the Space Force. Space Force.
Yeah.
Is that what you was on the edge of your tongue?
Well, I was just fixing to say, didn't they just put a new one in there because they're going into space? But
literally,
I guess they're going to arm us against aliens.
They are armed, uniformed part of our United States forces. And I was real surprised. I had no idea what it is. Now, there are 2 more. That was 6. There are 2 more to make up 8 of the actual uniformed services of our country. Would you like to see if you could name those?
Who? Me?
Either one of you. I don't care.
Oh,
I didn't know these. So, I mean, it's not surprising.
they're the uniform services, right?
But they are still a part of the military service of the United States. Believe it or not.
because Navy SEALs would go with Navy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Those that's just an offshoot of, and one of the reasons that the National Guard is not part of that list is because they actually belong to the either Army or Navy. They are Army, National Guard, or Air Force, Army, National Guard, or Air National Guard. So they're not actually part of that list of 6. And so the other 2
I would say Merchant Marine, but they're not.
They're part of the Marines or Navy. The other 2 is the United States Public Health Service Commissioned Corps. And they are, of course, Department of Health and Human Services, but they are considered part of the United States military. The other one is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Commissioned Officer Corps. Now, the only difference on those 2 than everybody else is they're not part of the armed uniformed services, but they are part of the uniformed services of the United States. So they belong in that list. It's a list of 8. And when you go to you search that out, any part of the 8, they are part of that. So,
and when did they come in? How long have they been?
I didn't search that part out. I looked up too many different parts of that, but you might do a search on that if you want to. Wikipedia has quite a little bit on it, so it might give you a history of those. But that is the 8. So once again,
you know what's scary, Mark?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, but do you know what's scary?
Yeah.
I know
a lot of scary things, but
yeah, the health one being an armed uniform.
It is
talking about these vaccinations and stuff. That's a little scary to me.
Okay. It's not. It's not armed.
Oh, okay.
Those are the 2 that are not armed. They are just part of the uniformed services of the United States and considered part of the military, but they are not armed.
Well, then they're not armed with guns, but they definitely are armed because they do carry a lot of ammunition.
Yeah, good.
Because they're from the elite,
Good
and
point.
they have a way of flexing their intelligentsia, so they really have a way of doing some serious damage, if you will.
Right.
And I can list a number of ways that they are they're armed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Very good way to look at it. Very interesting. A couple other details. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and the Space Force are part of the Department of Defense, the DoD. The Coast Guard is the Department of Homeland Security. So what you're talking about, Coast Guard literally defines the coast of the United States, whether or not it's on both sides. The north and south, basically edges, could be considered a coast, and that's what you're talking about, border control.
Yeah, border patrol.
That is a part of Homeland Security. So when you're talking coast guard, guarding the two coasts, the West Coast and East Coast, but then you also had the guarding of the borders, all come into the Department of Homeland Security. It's interesting, though, Border Patrol is not even listed there at all, but it is a part of that. And I don't think, unless they bring in specific people to do this, like military or police type people, the Border Patrol aren't even armed at all. They have people within reach that can be armed, but they're basically not armed. So they're not a part of all that. Whereas the Coast Guard are armed. So our coasts are covered that way, just not the borders. So interesting. The Coast Guard has both military and law enforcement duties. Coast Guard is part of the armed forces at all time, making it the only branch of the military outside the Department of Defense. During a declared state of war, however, the president or Congress may direct that the Coast Guard operate as part of the Department of the Navy. So little interesting little things there. As far as the National Guard is an additional reserve military component of the Army and the Air Force, like what we just talked about. The National Guard perform a minimum of 39 days of military duty per year, and who augment the active duty or full-time military when necessary. The militia that later became the National Guard was first formed in the colony of Virginia in 1607 and is the oldest uniformed military force founded in the New World. The National Guard can also be mobilized by the president to operate under federal authority, whereas until the president does this, because of a national thing, they are basically under each state. Each state has their own National Guard, Army and Air Force. When acting under federal direction, the National Guard is managed by the National Guard Bureau, a joint Army and Air Force activity under the Department of Defense. So very interesting to me. These are things that I didn't know. And I hope everybody would be a little interested in that, or a lot interested in that. Hey, you don't know. I'm a lot interested in these things. I love learning about these things. So going back to the Navy, our specific clause in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 13 is the Congress shall have the power to provide and maintain a Navy. So it's up to the Congress to literally make sure the Navy is maintained. So they're the ones that is the go-to about making sure all the different things are set and forth. A Navy or Sea Force is the branch of a nation's armed forces. Of course, we know there are most countries that have any worth at all have their own navy. If they didn't, we wouldn't have anything to defend. So any navy is the branch of a nation's armed forces principally designed for naval and amphibious warfare. My lips won't move right. Namely lake-borne, riverine, littoral, or ocean-borne combat operations and related functions. It includes anything conducted by surface ships, amphibious ships, submarines, and seaboard aviation, as well as ancillary support, communications, training, and other fields. The strategic offensive role of the Navy is a projection of force into areas beyond a country's shore. For example, to protect sea lanes, deter or confront piracy, ferry troops, or attack other navies, ports, or shore installations. The strategic defensive purpose of a navy is to frustrate seaborne projection of force by enemies. So in other words, if we are being attacked by another navy, another country, we are to frustrate that projection of force by the enemies. I understand that to mean that we are never on the offensive. To frustrate their projection of force means that we are there to defend our country, not to go on the offensive. I think that's very well put. I like the way that's written and put there. The strategic task of the Navy also may incorporate nuclear deterrence by use of submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Once again, also may incorporate nuclear deterrence. That is a defense mechanism, not an offense mechanism. It is the largest and most capable Navy in the world, and it has been estimated that in terms of tonnage of its active battle fleet alone, it is larger than the next 13 navies combined, which includes 11 U.S. allies or partner nations. So the closest 13 navies, biggest navies in the world, our one navy is bigger than those next 13 navies. How interesting. It has the highest combined battle fleet tonnage and the world's largest aircraft carrier fleet, with 11 in service, 2 new carriers under construction, and 5 other carriers planned. 336,978 personnel on active duty. That's as of my research of a few days ago. And on that, 336,978 personnel on active duty and 101,583 in ready reserve. So that gives you about 450,000 people in active service just in the Navy. This doesn't include any of our other armed services. The U.S. Navy is the third largest of the U.S. military service branches in terms of personnel. It has 290 deployable combat vessels and more than 3,700 operational aircraft, making it the third largest Air Force in the world. Oh, I see. Navy Air Force. Third largest Navy Air Force in the world after the United States Air Force and the United States Army. Naval operations can be broadly divided between riverine. Now, this is the part that makes me think of Sherry and Bob. Naval operations can be broadly divided between riverine and littoral applications. So, in other words, what they're calling brown water Navy. Your open ocean applications are what's called blue water Navy. So, the oceans are considered as blue water Navy, and then your rivers are called brown water Navy. And then you have something in between called a green water Navy. Green water Navy is a marine force that is capable of operating in its nation's littoral zones and has the competency to operate in the open oceans of its surrounding regions. The littoral zone is or near shore. Oh, this is yes, I remember now. The littoral zone or near shore is part of the sea, lake, or river that is close to the shore. In coastal environments, the littoral zone extends from high water mark, which is rarely inundated, to shoreline areas that are permanently submerged. So what you're talking about is like you go, like Abigail and I both live on the coast. So they patrol, or they take care of, from our shorelines out to what they call it, the high water, or a certain area, probably as far as what our laws are, because once you get to a certain point, like 2 miles out, then you're in international law, that type of thing. So green water Navy would be the shoreline out to a certain point, like 2 or 3 miles, something like that. And that's called the littoral zone. Very interesting to me. So it originates with the United States Navy, who use it to refer to the portion of their fleet that specializes in offensive operations in coastal waters. Nowadays, such ships rely on stealth or speed to avoid destruction by shore batteries or land-based aircraft. Now, you would think that our Coast Guard is the one that takes care of this green water Navy, but it's not. They have a much broader approach, and also, of course, our Navy does. But both can work within that, and they can also work within the blue water and brown water part of our country. So I find that all very interesting, and I'm interested. That's basically the notes that I have, the research that I've done, and my gosh, the things that you could search out on this are endless. So I'm interested. Anybody want to add to this or talk about any specific part of this? I'm real interested in hearing what you ladies have to say. And don't both speak at once. Come on. Carrie, go ahead. You're ready to go there.
I hadn't heard of the green water, but I've never heard Bob refer to that. But I know the blue water and the brown water. The blue water is the ocean, and the brown is, and that's one thing. A lot of people, we have, and I've mentioned it before, we have what's called the Jones Act. They cannot put a foreign company cannot own a riverboat company, and you cannot put foreign pilots and crews on those, because, like, say they started bringing in a lot of Chinese to run our riverboats. Well, if we went to war with China, guess what? They would cut our nation into little bitty bits because of our river things. But this is talking about providing for the Congress shall provide and maintain the Navy. Bob's talked about this, and they did this years ago. They used to pay the river pilots used to get the same benefits as the military. And they came in and cut all of that out. They lost all of their benefits, their medical, their dental, everything. They told them, oh, it would, it's going to be taken care of, da 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 da. Well, they never do that. And so that's one thing that the U.S. actually did to the Brownwater guys. They just said they lost all of their military benefits. So, but during World War II, they were very instrumental in a lot of things, the river traffic and stuff, moving a lot of the merchandise, not merchandise, but the things that they made in the factories. People don't realize how very large river traffic is in the U.S. And Bob used to have well, I'm sure he still has it. I just don't remember, but how many trucks so many trucks could carry equaled what one barge could carry.
Oh, I understand. Sure. I see what you're saying. Yeah, sure.
So if you had, I forget, it's something like, I'm just going to make up another, like 50 trucks on one barge.
Right.
And you've got 40 barges or 50, Bob's done as much as 52 barges. That's how many truckloads would be on those 52 barges.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of river traffic out there. It's just almost kind of a hidden industry because people just, oh yeah, there's barges. They don't think anything about it. We see truckers on the roads all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So,
now that's the way I'm thinking. I don't spend any time on the rivers. I don't do boating, but I'm on the roads all the time. Even local roads, you're seeing 18-wheelers. You're seeing a truck pulling a huge box behind it. But then my thought also goes to seeing barges, but my thought is more of on the ocean, going from one country to another. You see these boats with these stacks that look like the trailer part of an 18-wheeler, but you get up close, they're 2 or 3 times that size, and they're all one unit, but they're stacked several high, several deep, several long on these barges. And I've seen like Mississippi River, big rivers. I don't see many small ones, but I've seen the same thing on the inner rivers of our country. So I'm with you. I know.
They don't know how much grain, because your grain barges, they'll load them to so much draft. And when you can look, if you look, and you'll see them high in the water, that means they're fairly empty. But then when they're loaded with that grain, you'll see them low in the water. Well, I don't know how many feet tall they are, but that's how much. So a lot of the stuff you don't realize is actually under the water because the barges are low in the water. They carry a lot of cargo and stuff out there. So, and they are actually overseen by the Coast Guard. And so it's that's when Bob was having to go to Washington and they had back years ago, and talked to some of the senators and met the big guys in the Coast Guard and all this, because they were trying to get some laws changed that were not fair to the guys. And they have a lot of meetings and things on that. So it is overseen. But you were talking about, in light of the Constitution, that they're to maintain a Navy, and yet they actually took the guys, what they call the Brownwater Navy, out from underneath the military benefits.
Right.
So,
so I'm going to give you a little picture here for people that really may not be basically seeing. Do you see the picture on the screen?
Yes.
This is what you're talking about. I mean, here's something like this. I mean, even out on the ocean, you could be 2 or 3 times as long a boat and stacked 10 times as high. Amazing what they can do in these barges.
And see, that's not a river going vessel. A river goat, they call them towboats, but they don't pull, they push. So
Okay.
you're looking so many wide and so many long. And sometimes when Bob was with the merchant, with the Pilots Association, and was meeting with them when he was doing work for the union and stuff. And those guys, those blue water guys, were amazed at what the brown water guys did. They're like, "You're so many football fields out in front, and you've got a curve in the river, and you got to start turning way before."
Yeah.
They said it's like running in a ditch. They were really, actually, a lot of them were amazed, at the skill that our riverboat pilots have to have.
Uh-huh.
And if you've ever, some of them are really the pushing all that load and how it's all lashed together. It's really interesting. But like I said, Congress kind of threw them under the bus, so to speak, took all their benefits.
That's why it says they have the power too.
Mm-hmm. And most all of them, I think, are merchant marines. So if we ever did go to war or have any kind of conflict like that, I mean, they're all a lot of people. I don't know if anybody did. I ever mention it about the lift when we had 911. There was a video out about that, and God was so merciful to us in the midst of that. They just happened to be having a meeting down at about some of the ferry boats and things in the port of New York, and it was the biggest sea evacuation, bigger than Dunkirk, that took place on 9/11. That they even had people come out in their private vessels. They jumped on their boats, because we forget Manhattan is an island.
Right.
They closed all the bridges. They closed everything in and out of Manhattan. Nobody could get out.
Right.
And they were all standing on the seawalls looking out, and they sent a call out, the ferry boats. And I mean, if you can find it on YouTube. I wish I could remember the name of it, but you can find it on YouTube. And they have pictures of ferry boats and private boats and everything coming from everywhere and lifting people over the seawall, and how people were helping other people in wheelchairs and handicapped people and getting them out of there, and just going back and forth, getting them out of Manhattan. So there's a lot to be said about the brown water, about the people on the ferry boats. They have been critical in times of crisis. And the Coast Guard, all that they did, I mean, it's amazing. And I'll try to remember or get the name of that, because it's on YouTube, and it's well worth watching, because they interviewed many people. And one guy was saying, my wife was saying, well, you crazy maniac, what can you do? He said, I can get in my boat and go get them folks. So he jumped. It was amazing. Of course, I was probably a lot affected, because we had a lot of people in the business we were in that were killed, but that's another story.
Okay. Wow.
I kind of get emotional about 9/11,
sure.
more so than others, because we lost a lot of clients and people we dealt with. But
I'm sure. Well, bring it next week, because if you can find it, that would be real good. We'll post it. Maybe if you'll send it to me ahead of time, maybe we can get a little portion of that and show it next week. In clause 14, we're still talking a little bit about the Navy. It's still a part of that. So I would love to bring that in.
I will get that to you, because it is well worth watching.
Cool. Very interesting.
It's the largest sea rescue evacuation since Dunkirk, and until that time, Dunkirk was the largest.
Well, it's
done in less time. It was done in less time.
It's interesting to me that, and I have to admit, have been one of these is that when you're talking about our United States Armed Forces, especially Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, literally, I think of those as protecting us against other countries. I just go there. But in fact, every single one of them are involved in the day-to-day activities right here on our own soil. Every single one of them. All the branches that are a part of all the 8 different uniformed and the 6 different armed services of our country are involved every day in here. And I am thrilled to learn these things, but most of that understanding should lead us to pray for each and every one of these services in our country right now. Our tax dollars go to these people. We, if our tax dollars go to something, we need to be praying over it, period. And these services in the United States are a huge part of our day-to-day lives, even though we don't see it. They work in the background to make sure that we have a day-to-day life. Abigail.
You gave me a segue.
I'm sure.
You did. You just gave me. You said even though we don't see it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk about submarines.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, because I just Googled and I just came up with it because I was always fascinated with submarines. I mean, I was always very interested in the whole, number one, just the whole concept, downscope, and just the intensity of every time I saw anything on a submarine, it was like everything was I guess, according to, I've done a little research while you two were talking, and that was very interesting, Sherry. And I just admire anyone that does any kind of work like that. Right now, James is doing some work, and I hear Bob Hall, he says he picks up stuff.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
And, but, anytime people are in production, they're picking up goods to bring to another customer, and, that whole concept of enterprise, if you will, and working and, and keeping things afloat in the United States of America. But it's interesting, the submarine, they say that there's a lot of people, number one, some submarines can cost up to $3 billion to make, to keep it going. $3 billion for one
You don't want holes in that thing. So yeah, $3 billion is worth it to make sure there's no.
It is. And also, the people, the men and women that are, usually it's men, but I mean, if there's a woman on there, I think some women have joined too. It's a very intense situation there. I mean, the area is very cramped, and it takes a person that is willing to deal with intense situations. So I was just looking at it and I said, wow, because I was intrigued with it from the time I was a young girl. And but it says that, again, that unseen patrolling, defending, they patrol areas like against Russia and the Kola Peninsula and all these areas. They're underground, and they are defending our country. They're and we're well equipped. But because of the expense of it, I think that they, they don't make as many as they would like to. One of them is based in Bangor. I thought it was Bangor, Maine. But I think it's Bangor. It says on the West Coast. So maybe there's another place called Bangor. And it normally sails to the Pacific Ocean with a nuclear power submarine. And it suddenly came to surface in Norway, a nuclear power submarine.
Really?
So I think it's just absolutely amazing what's happened with mankind. We have the space and we have the ocean, in the depths of the ocean. So I just have to say, I'm so impressed. I really am. I know we talked a little bit about this before we started on this subject about who is the God that people put their hands on the Bible to serve? And who is the God that we want to make sure we're mentioning it in the flag?
Right.
Well, he's like any of us. Mark, you answer to daddy or dad from your children. You answer, I don't know what your grandchildren call you. I call you Mark David Smith. I never call you Mark. I call you Mark David Smith. And you answer to these names.
Right.
Well, I know that our Heavenly Father, our creator of heaven and earth, as long as we call on him, as long as we're including him in his creation, he's like, it's okay. I know you may know not everything about me. That's okay. I know everything about you. And you're inviting me. So when I look at the submarines, the invention of a submarine, and then we're on the generation of going up to space and armed. And I just say, we serve an awesome Elohim, an awesome God, an awesome creator that he wants to preserve life. He wants us to be able to defend. It's okay to have borders. It's okay to have watchmen on the walls or in the ocean, So anyhow, I was just intrigued by the submarines, part of the Navy. I've always been interested in them. I've always had an interest in submarines.
I love submarine movies.
Yes.
Yes. Me in movies, it don't make no difference. Just give me a submarine movie, I'll watch it.
Yeah, that's where I first got my interest, is all these summer. I think they may have even had some ongoing weekly things. I forget I think there was some, because I always remember Downscope, and I just remember the intensity of it, and but there was a certain character trait in an individual that could be a part of that. Not everybody can. They won't let everybody be a part of it, because you can really freak out under there,
That's right. I probably would not be one of them. I enjoy being on a ship, and I was on two different kinds of ships, actually a very small one and a very big one. And I had to have my job on both ships was working with the utility boats. So in other words, my job was outside all the time, because I had to work with the smaller boats that they set on the ships. So when they're out to sea or they anchor out, you have to run small boats, from the ship. And that was my job. And so being inside the ship, even though I'm not claustrophobic, I had to be outside as much as possible. So I just can't imagine doing the submarine gig at all. It's just I think they're fascinating, and I've been on one. I took a tour of one time, and it was fascinating, and I love the movies. But even watching the movies, it's like I couldn't do that.
I know.
I just couldn't do that. And so talking about submarines always brings to mind the saying. As a matter of fact, on my show Compass of Cram this last Monday night, it was even quoted, is faith without works is like a submarine with a screen door, like a screen door on a submarine.
That's good. I'll tell you another area of the Navy that always intrigued me was the aircraft carriers.
Oh yeah.
I love the aircraft carriers. We had right here in Boston, I wish I could remember the name of the company that actually built them and repaired them. It's a very famous company that escapes me right now. But my brother-in-law, he was on the aircraft carrier when he was in the Navy, and then when he left the Navy, he became a builder and repairer as a welder on there. And I think my father was even on an aircraft carrier during World War II. So I'm intrigued with that whole thing, an airplane on a boat in the ocean.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, they have to land and take off from that aircraft carrier within a short
record-breaking time and a short runway, not a big runway, So that always intrigued me too.
The engineering that goes into that type of thing, the engineering that, all those different things fascinate me by far. But I am in total agreement with you. I think one of the most interesting engineering of our time has been the engineering or creating the ability to not only take off. I can see the takeoff. I can see that. But the landing and staying on the ship when you're landing on it, that engineering is amazing. Just absolutely. You watch movies like Top Gun, which was like one of my first seeing something like that. That's why I say, aircraft carriers. When I say aircraft carriers, I'm flat. It's flat. But I'm with you. I think all of it is just great. Once again, I spent 3 years in the Navy, and it was a very interesting time. But there was one thing that I've said ever since I got out, and that is the fact that most likely I probably wouldn't have cared for the Navy so much, except that what I learned was that they put you through things that you never would have done yourself in your life. So in other words, you are tested to your integrity and your ability to do things that you wouldn't have tested yourself before. And I came out of the Navy with a more integrity-wise person, because now I knew I could do these things. I knew I could handle these things. I had the confidence in life that I never had before. I would have never been a career man, because it's just not being... when you're in the service, when you sign up for any part of the service, you now belong to the government. Literally, you belong to the government. There are an enormous amount of freedoms that are annihilated from the time you sign that paper till the time they give you that discharge. A lot of your freedoms are annihilated, and that I'm just not that kind of person, I liked the 3-year stint, but that's it for me. But once again, they do teach you integrity. You cannot be an individual in any part of the service without exercising integrity, because they won't put up with it. And so I like that. And I like the fact that there are securities in this country because of our military service, of our services that are provided by this country. There's a lot of things that we don't agree with. There's a lot of things that are wrong, period. And they go against Torah. They go against our way of life. But yet the underlying thing here is I would choose this country over any other country in the world. You just don't know until you go someplace else. And all three of us have been in other countries. We've been in third world countries. We've been in very secure countries. We've been there, and we know the differences in the way of life, the cultures of other countries. And so, I like my way of life here. I really do. So,
I kind of have the attitude, if you don't like this country, move. I mean, that's, if you don't like living here, go live somewhere else.
Yeah, we've offered to pay one-way tickets to some people that have complained.
Sure.
Yes. I was going to say one quick thing in response to Abigail, if I could, on the submarines. And here goes the history buff. Being a Southern girl here, and nothing against anybody else, but the Hunley. I don't know if y'all know about the submarine, the Hunley, Hunley.
Sounds familiar, but I'm not.
It was a submarine that during the Civil War, it was made in Mobile, Alabama. It was one of the first, it was a submarine, and they ended up using it in Charleston, and they sunk one of the ships that was in the harbor, but the Hunley also sunk. And then in the 1990s, they found it on the seabed, and they pulled it up, because they wanted to look and see, examine it and everything. And they said one of the really weird things about it was everybody was still sitting at their stations, and but anyway, I always thought that was interesting that, and then there was one called the Turtle, I think, before that. So
that was an ironclad ship that was way back. That's back in the glory days. That was back in Lincoln's time and that type of thing. Those were very early ships. Yeah.
But the Hunley in the Civil War, like I said, it was made in Mobile, Alabama, and they sunk that ship at Charleston. But they had already said that and this is where I was going, those guys on there had to be very brave because it had already sunk twice and they'd had to get it back up with guys.
Wow.
So they knew that they would probably not come back from that mission.
Huh.
So, and we have a lot of our brave military and a lot of our first responders and firemen that when everybody else is running away, they're running towards it. And those people are incredibly brave, just like what we're seeing on the TV, the police that are protecting people. They're standing as a line of righteousness against this chaos that's hitting this country. And they're very brave people because they stand out there knowing they're going to have things thrown at them, knowing that no telling what's going to happen.
Right.
It takes a very unique type, brave person to go out and stand in that situation.
Well, in Romans 13, Sherry, it says the police department are called by God. It's a calling. Anyone that is protecting the social environment, it says it right there, and I think it's Romans 13. They're called, and I'm like, every time I look at them, and I say, don't you understand that they answered a call to protect, to defend, like we were talking about defending. And so it's definitely, and I hear them giving testimony. This is, I wanted to do this all my life. It was a call. And I'm like, yeah. And I say all the time, I'm praying for you. You're in the Bible, Romans 13. Check it out.
Very, very good. Very well said. I like it. Okay. Well, this has been good. They're all so good. And I don't think anybody could ever predict how any one of these shows would ever go, because they're always incorporated into a very well put together. So I like it a lot. I enjoy doing the research for these. And next week, we're going to go with Clause 14. The Congress shall have the power to make rules for the government and make rules for regulation of the land and make rules for naval forces. And I've already done some research on this. I've got a very good discourse on the Congress's care of the armed forces, and we'll go over that next week. So this ought to be another interesting week of the Constitution, contemplating the Constitution. And we just talked about Article 1, Section 8, Clause number 13. And so thank you, Abigail. Very good. You have two shows tonight. The Hidden Voice of Hadassah is on this evening, and following that is also Israel My Delight with Governor O'Hare. And so we look forward to those and all the other shows. Sherry has a new video out called The Waterfalls of Destruction, and it's part 4, Rebellion. Just came out, and it is right on the homepage. If you go to MessianicLambNetwork.com, the first thing you're going to see is Sherry's Waterfalls of Destruction, and you can click on that and listen to her part 4. Also a link where you can go and listen to the other 3 parts. They're all very, very, very good. So you want to go check those out. Coming up this Sunday is our September 6th is our newest keeping focus in distracting times, and it's keeping focus on prayer in distracting times. Dr. Dina Dye is bringing her On Fire prayer team. I believe there's like 10, isn't there 10, Sherry? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Yes, it's 10.
prayer warriors coming in to pray over a whole bunch of different topics, and we talked about those at the first of the show, the different topics that they're going to pray over. And Sherry's going to be praying, and Dr. Dina Dye will be praying. Sherry will be hosting this. As a matter of fact, let's just watch a real quick short promo on.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher kitchenu b'dam Yeshua.
So there you go. And so I hope y'all will join us and pray with us as we pray on Sunday for this. And each one of the different prayer warriors will have 10 minutes to pray over a specific topic. And oh my gosh, I wish I could give them all 10 hours. And I'm sure each one of them would take it and still be able to go. So, but we can't do that. So we hope that it just sparks you to want to pray more on each one of these subjects. So you can find the website. If you go to Messianic Lamb Network, you can actually see on. Go ahead, Abigail.
No. I'm okay.
Or I mean, Sherry. Sorry, was going to say something.
One thing I was going to say to add to what you're saying is that this is the month of Elul.
Right, exactly.
And that is why, well, also being led of the Lord to do it, but we're to be repenting. And so we're going to be repenting for our nation before the Lord. And Amen. I believe it's very critical.
Amen. Well, so I put up a link on the screen, and it's also in the chat there. So if you want to go check out more information, you want to see who's praying, and the list of what they're praying about is all right there on the website. So you might go check that out. And we'll be doing that next Sunday. And then next Wednesday, once again, I mentioned that we we'll be covering Clause 13 of the Constitution. And it's also going to be my birthday. So I want everybody to bring me lots of presents to the show. Just pile them up right here in the studio. And, I'm sure they'll all be great. Every present is great. So, so I'll be 66 years old, loving every minute of it. I really am. So that ought to be a special little broadcast for us all. But anyway, once again, thanks, Abigail, and thanks, Sherry, so much for your input. It's always the most precious time for me. I really value both of your input so much. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for laying a great foundation. Hallelujah. Excellent.
More than welcome. More than welcome. All right. Everybody have a great week. Shavua Tov, and we'll see you on another show. See y'all later. God bless.
Shalom. Shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.